I start with lecture 10 first because last week we talked about Mendelian genetics. So I think it's better for us to continue with the extensions of Mendelian genetics analysis. So after that, then we cover our chi-square test. Okay, so as we know that what is beyond Mendelian genetics is that it was the Mendelian's works was rediscovered in the early 90s, and the researchers have studied many ways of genes which can influence the individuals. Okay, and also types of the inheritance observed by the researcher that did not conform to the expected Mendelian ratio, because Mendelian's genetics is imperfect. Okay, like your Mendelian law of dominance and recessive, and another one is like segregations and then said assortments. All right, and then but not all of the variations that we see in the environment or we observe is not necessarily follow the Mendelian rules. Okay, so that's why they comes up with something which is beyond the Mendelians. Okay, and how alleles affect phenotypes not always is not a simple form of dominance or recessive issue, or the genes interaction. Okay, phenotypes controlled by more than one gene. This is very important because genes, they talk to each other, they interact with each other, and they can sometimes will silence, some may stimulate the expressions of other gene. Okay, not one gene carry out the function by itself, but they also being controlled by other gene. Okay, and also the sex-linked genes like the X linkage, X and Y organism, and also the phenotype that can depend on more than genotypes, which is because of the environmental effects. Okay, not only the genotype will affect the phenotype, but the environment will come into control the effect of the phenotype. Okay, so as we look at the medications of dominance relationships, the complete dominance and complete recessiveness are two extreme in the range of dominance possible between the pairs of allele. And however, many alleles pairs are less extreme in their expression, and they only show incomplete dominance or codominance. Okay, so for example, the incomplete dominance, a heterozygous phenotype will be intermediate between the two possible homozygous phenotype. Okay, and there could be also codominance, whereby the heterozygous show the phenotypes of both homozygous, or at the molecular level, this relationship between the pairs of alleles depend upon the patterns of gene expression. We're going to look at this in more detail later. Okay, so what is allele? Allele basically is an alternative form of the same gene. Okay, like the eye color or the blood groups. Okay, and the allele occurring most frequently in the populations, what we call a normal allele, or is also called wild type. We use WT to indicate them. Okay, whereby all these genes exhibit the normal function, but WT also usually, however, WT allele also usually the dominance and expressed in the wild type phenotype. Okay, and this WT allele used as the standard for the comparisons for all the mutations or alternative alleles in the genes or locus. However, the mutation is the ultimate source of new alleles. All right, and the mutation may occur. Okay, and it comes with the new allele, and the new phenotypes result from the changes in the functional activity of a gene's product. For example, it could eliminating the enzyme function. It may change the relative enzyme efficiency, or they may change the overall enzyme function. Okay, this could be because of the mutations with the new function of the new allele. Okay, so far, can you follow me?
Yes, doctor.
Okay, now if we write an allele, how we write is the lowercase basically indicate the recessive allele, and the uppercase usually represent the dominant allele. Okay, for example, the ABO blood group are written such as A with I with the A capital letter, I with the B capital letter, and then the recessive is the small I, and this is how we call we indicate that whether it's a recessive or dominant. And if we look at our multiple alleles, of course, there are multiple alleles for one gene. Okay, then individual can have up to 2 alleles for a single gene, which is the diploid or homologous chromosome, and also the multiple allele that may apply when there are 3 or more alleles of the same gene in a population. Okay, for many genes have multiple alleles. For example, 2 or more different alleles, such as in our eyes color. Some people will have dark eyes, brown eyes. Some have the yellow, blue eye. Some have the green eye. This is because of the multiple alleles, or may display in the hierarchy of the dominance, such as the fur color, or may display in the co-dominance, such as our blood type. And the classic example of human ABO blood groups is the one that's having the multiple alleles. Okay, and this group result from this series of the 3 alleles, as I said just now, with the I with the capital A, I with the capital B, and also the small I, the local. That's combined produced for the 4 different phenotypes, such as blood group A, blood group B, blood group AB, and also blood group O. So both I with the capital A and I with the capital B are the dominants, who are the small I are co-dominant to each other. The resulting phenotype are shown in the table, for example, is here. Okay, for example, if you look at the blood group O, they are written as small I. Okay, whereby the A, it could be the capital A, 2 capital A, and 1 capital A, or 1 small I. B also the same with the capital B, capital I with the capital B, or capital B with a small I, whereby the AB, they come together with the capital A and then the capital B. All right. So, who discovered this blood group is a Carl Landsteiner. He discovered this in the early 90s, and after 30 years later, he received the Nobel Prize in the physiology and medicine for his work. And there are 3 alleles for the ABO: locus, which is the AI capital A, I with the capital B, and then with the small AI. So from these 3 alleles, 4 phenotypes are produced. Right? The first one is the type A. Okay, if you are the type A, that means you have an A antigen on your red blood cell. If you are type B, you have the B antigen in your red blood cell. If you are type AB, you have both antigen A and antigen B in your red blood cell. If you are type O, that means you have neither A nor B antigen. That means you don't have A and B. Okay, so far boleh ya?
Boleh, doktor.
You all tahu you tahu you punya blood group tak?
Tahu. Yes.
Tahu
Yes.
So di sini kalau kita tengok di sini, blood group A, B, AB dengan O, siapa adalah penerima universal?
AB.
Okay, siapa penerima universal?
O.
Because O ini dia boleh derma kepada A, B, dan AB kan? Okay, tetapi kalau type AB, dia hanya boleh terima darah daripada AB sahaja. Betul?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jadi adakah kamu percaya ada orang kata orang type AB ni kedekut? Type O ini dia lebih generous. Betul tak?
Not really.
Not
Yalah,
really.
saya pun tak percaya ni. Tapi ada orang kata lah. Okay. Okay, so kalau kita tengok modifications of the dominance relationship kan untuk incomplete dominance, so it's an allelic relations whereby the dominance is only partial. Dia tidak jelas, ya, partial. Dia tidak macam yang dulu kita belajar tengok P plan itu. Okay, kalau dia biji dia bulat, smooth dengan satu yang dia wrinkle, maka yang smooth tu dia dominan kan, ataupun dia kedut-kedut kan. Dia tidak ada di antara kedut dan smooth kan. Dia hanya dua saja phenotype, betul?
Yes.
Itu complete dominant dengan complete recessive. Tetapi dalam keadaan tertentu kita ada yang incomplete, di mana dia the phenotype yang ditunjukkan adalah di antara, which is what we call the partial. So the dominant allele is unable to produce a full phenotype seen in the homozygous dominant individual. This is what we call the partial expression. So in a heterozygous, the recessive allele is not expressed. So the result is nil, which is the intermediate phenotype. So one of the very common example is the flower color of the snapdragons, which involves the two allele, which is the CR and CW. Okay, CR is the flower that's with the red color, and the other one, the CW, is the one with the white color. Okay, but the red color plants, which is the CR and CR, cross with the white flower ones, CW, produce all the pink progeny, which is the CR and CW. Yeah, so all tidak menyebelahi sama ada white flower or red flower, tapi dia semua di antara white dengan red, which is the pink color. Okay, yang ini kita kenalikan sebagai incomplete dominant. Satu lagi ialah palominohosis, which is the golden yellow body with the nearly white manes and also tail. Another example, contohnya di sini, the horse. Okay, dia di antara. Cantik, memang cantik, mahal ni. Ya, dia macam golden color. So kalau kamu tahu bagaimana kalau kita tahulah ya, kalau kita tahu genetik ini, dan kita sebenarnya boleh apply-kan dia ke dalam business ataupun dalam, yalah, most of it is a business lah. Kalau snapdragon kan, orang tengok biasa mah tengok merah dengan warna putih. Tapi if you can come up with color yang berbeza, kan itu lebih menarik kan. It's more interesting and people gonna love it. That you can play around with all these incomplete dominance punya expressions of the gene. Yeah, that's we can come out with the new varieties. Banyak pokok bunga memang mereka gunakan incomplete dominance punya strategy. Okay, banyak. Okay, kalau kamu nak belajar inilah for the plant. Okay, so kalau di sini kalau kita tengok the P generation, the parents, which is the CR, which indicate the red plant, and then CW is the white one. Then if they cross it, they comes up with all the pinkish color. Okay, dan kalau pink color ini kita especially F1 ini kalau kita incross dia lagi, okay, kita akan dapati apa? Okay, kita akan dapati satu yang CR, yang mana dia berbalik kepada yang warna apa?
Red.
Warna merah kan? Okay, kita akan dapati ada satu pokok yang akan menghasilkan warna merah, dua pokok yang menghasilkan warna pink, which is the CR, dan CW punya genotype, dan satu pokok adalah CW dan CW itu warna putih. So dia punya ratio ialah 1:2:1. Tidak seperti yang common dalam Mendelian's dominant and recessive punya law di mana 3:1. Ya, ini 1:2:1. Ya, boleh faham?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Begitu dah juga dengan yang berlaku dengan chicken. Okay. Kalau kita tengok chicken ni, kalau kita gunakan yang parent phenotype the black plumage dengan the white plumage ni. Okay. Kalau kita tengok the diploid parental genotype untuk the black plumage, kita gunakan B besar, dan white plumage guna B ke W. Dan kalau kita cross dia, the first generation semuanya adalah warna bluish grey. Okay? Dan ini menunjukkan bahawa ini adalah incomplete dominance. Ya?
Okay.
Sama dengan Snapdragon tadi kan? Ataupun yang blue ini dia kenali sebagai Andalusian blue. Okay? Boleh kan?
Okay, boleh.
Boleh, doktor.
Okay. So, now, tadi ialah incomplete dominant. Ya? Dan sekarang kalau kita tengok co-dominant. In co-dominant, the heterozygous phenotype include the phenotype of both homozygous. So, no dominance or recessive, no blended phenotypes, not incomplete dominant. So some example of co-dominant ialah human, MN, blood group involved in the red blood cell antigen that are less important in transfusions, which are 3 types. Okay, type M, type MN, dan type N. Ya, dengan dia punya genotype tulis LM sebagai type M, LM dengan LN sebagai type MN. Satu lagi type genotype LN sebagai type N. Okay, itulah co-dominant. So, current explanation ya untuk yang level of gene expressions for each allele, contohnya in incomplete dominance, the recessive allele are not expressed, and the dominant allele produce only enough product for an intermediate punya product. Boleh ya? Maksudnya dia tidak menyebelahi dominant ataupun recessive. Tapi dalam incomplete dominance, the recessive value memang tidak express lah. Tetapi yang dominant punya gene pun tidak mampu hasilkan produk untuk tunjukkan dia punya dominance tu. So dia hanya boleh keluarkan phenotype di mana dia menunjukkan perantara. Okay, genotype yang perantara. Manakala dalam incomplete dominant, manakala dalam co-dominant, both allele make a product and producing a combined phenotype. Okay, so by contrast, a completely dominant allele creates a full phenotype by one of the two methods. So it's produced. So it produces half the amount of the proteins found in the homozygous dominant individual, but it is sufficient to produce the full phenotype, and this gene is what we call haplosufficient. And the expressions of one active allele may be upregulated and generating protein level adequate to produce the full phenotype. Okay, boleh ya?
Boleh, doktor.
Okay,
Yes.
so kalau kita tengok the phenotype trait result from the complex interactions of the molecule under genetic control, kan? So the genetic analysis can often detect the pattern of this reaction. For example, the hybrid cross, which is A besar, A kecil, B besar, B kecil, kita kacaukannya, kita akan dapati 9 genotype dan akan menghasilkan 9:3 phenotype ratio. Betul? So deviation from this ratio indicates that the interaction of the two or more gene is involved in producing the phenotype. Tidak semuanya mengikut 9331 kan? Okay, so apa yang two type of the interaction occur is that different gene control the same trait. Di mana dua gene yang berbeza tetapi dia control satu ciri yang sama. So collectively produce a phenotype. Satu lagi ialah one gene mask the expressions of other. Maksudnya satu gene itu dia melitupi. Dia mask. Dia tidak benarkan satu gene yang expressed. So altered the phenotype. So in the real world, large number of the genes and complex gene interaction are often involved in forming a trait, which is the formations of contohnya the formations of our eyes. Okay. Contoh satu lagi ialah the gene interact that produce new phenotype. Kalau kita tengok the COM, okay. So a non-allelic genes that affect the same characters may interact to give a novel phenotype and often modify phenotype ratio. Example which include the COM shape in the chicken. Contohnya the COM shape in chicken may influenced by two gene loci to produce 4 different COM type. Okay, contohnya di sini. Okay, contohnya A ialah Roscom. Kenapa Roscom? Kerana dia punya COM tu dia macam Ros. Okay. Dalam bahasa Malaysia, COM ni apa ya? Bahasa Malaysia, COM ni. Sikat tak? Sikat?
Ya.
Sikat ayam? Bukan kan?
Baluk.
Saya tak tahu apa kita panggil tu. Yang di atas kepala tu. Tahu tak?
Tak tahu.
Baluk ke
Aha.
doktor?
Saya pun tak tahu lah. Dalam bahasa Malaysia kita cakap apa. Okay, never mind. So, COM ni. Rambut dia tak. Okay, so COM ini. Roscom dia bentuk dia macam COM. Satu lagi ialah walnut. Dia macam bentuk walnut lah. Pernah makan walnut kan? Okay. Satu lagi ialah P-COM. Macam P satu single COM. Macam ni. Biasa yang kita tengok ialah single COM kan? Tapi kalau kita tengok di sini, dia hasilkan 4 jenis phenotype yang berbeza. Okay? Kerana dia adalah dipengaruhi oleh 2 gene locus. Mana dalam 2 gene locus ini, dia menghasilkan 4 phenotype yang berbeza. Okay? Itu salah satu daripada contohnya. Okay? So, apa yang dia, kalau kita tengok gene interaction that produce new phenotype, contohnya kalau kita tengok Roscom dengan P-COM. Ya? Kita kacukkannya. Okay, apa yang akan kita dapat ialah walnut. All walnut COM. Ya. Dia tidak ada Ros ataupun P, tapi dia menjadi walnut. All walnut COM. Okay. Lepas tu dalam generasi kedua tu kita increase dia lagi, kita akan dapati 9 daripada 16 adalah walnut, 3 daripada 16 adalah Roscom, 3 daripada 16 ialah P-COM, dan 1 per 16 adalah single COM. Jadi dia wujud lagi satu COM yang baru. Walaupun ini dia follow 9331, tetapi dia menghasilkan 4 phenotype yang berbeza. Okay? Yang ini you guna Punnett square lah. Gunakan Punnett square itu untuk calculate. Boleh tak? Siapa yang tanya tadi itu? So, can you explain siapa tanya tadi? Erdina. Ya, Erdina boleh. Kamu boleh gunakan Punnett square. Ya, memang boleh guna Punnett square untuk hasilkan. Cuma kamu kena rajin tulis saja dia punya itu keluarlah. dia punya genotype tu. Ya. Tak susah sebenarnya. Dia macam kita buat yang P plant yang dua dihybrid tu. Okay. Sama saja dia punya konsep. Cuma yang ini dia hasilkan 4 jenis phenotype yang berbeza sahaja. Okay. The basic concept still the same. Okay. For gene interaction that produce new phenotype. Okay. Contohnya di sini. Okay. Contohnya the non-allelic genes that affect the same characteristic may interact to give novel phenotype that often modify the phenotypic ratio. Example which include the comb shape of the chicken. Satu lagi, your fruit shape in the summer, squash. That show 6:9:1 ratio. So there are 2 genes that are involved, each completely dominant, and interact between the 2 loci, producing the new phenotype. Contohnya di sini. You tengok the A dengan A besar dengan B kecil punya the sphere shape. Satu ialah A kecil B besar punya sphere shape ini, dia akan hasilkan the dish shape. Ya, A besar A kecil B besar B kecil. Dan kamu cekacokkan dalam F1 ni, F1 tu semuanya adalah dish shape, dan dish shape ni the F1 ni you kacok semula, kamu akan ada 6 adalah sphere shape dan satu ialah long shape. Alright? Punya tu. Right? Tu. Okay?
Doctor, I have a question.
Yes.
About just now the sphere shape. One
Yeah.
is capital A with the small b, and another one is small a with capital B. Why is that the phenotype is still the same, both sphere shape?
Because that there are 2 loci produce the same phenotype. There is the interaction of 2 loci. Two genes at 2 different loci, but they control the same phenotype.
Oh.
Faham tak? That's why walaupun genotype dia berbeza, you look at kan yang sphere shape tu kan. Okay? Kenapa dia masih, walaupun genotype berbeza, tetapi dia punya phenotype adalah sama, betul tak? Yang ini kamu tidak boleh gunakan traditional punya Mendelian law sudah. Okay? Kerana dalam ini gennya tidak ada dalam locus yang sama. Dia 2 locus berbeza. 2 gene tetapi dia dalam 2 locus yang berbeza, tetapi dia control the same phenotype. That's why you nampak phenotype dia sama.
Okay.
Kalau phenotype dia berbeza, maksudnya dia macam gene biasa yang lain. Mana 2 different loci, 2 different gene control 2 different phenotype.
Oh, okay.
Jadi tidak interesting sudah kan? Tapi ini interesting. 2 different gene from 2 different loci, but they control the same phenotype. Siapa yang Okay, satu lagi ialah epistasis. Okay, epistasis ialah one gene mask the expression or effect of another gene. Okay, the gene that masks another is what we call epistatic. A gene that get masked is what we call hypostatic. Boleh faham tak?
Boleh.
Okay, so if A masks the B, so A is called epistatic. If A get masked by gene B, we call gene is what we call hypostatic. So the several possibility that interaction exceed that all producing modifications in the 9331 the hybrid ratio. For example, the epistasis may be caused by recessive allele. So that's small a and small a mask the effect of the B, which is the recessive epistasis. Because A dengan A ialah recessive kan?
Yes.
Right? But the mass yang dominant, betul tak?
Yeah.
The mass effect of B besar tu, B besar ialah dominant, betul tak?
Yes.
Ya, so di sini kita panggil dia sebagai recessive epistasis. Kalau epistasis that may caused by dominant allele, that A besar pun dominant, mass effect of B pun dominant, that what we call the dominant epistatics. Okay? If the epistasis that may occur both directional or direction between genes require both A and B to produce a particular phenotype, this is what we call a duplicate recessive epistasis. Okay? Ini cuma bagi tahu kamu sajalah. Contohnya epigenetics yang akan kita belajar dengan lebih lanjut lagi di developmental biology. We'll talk more about epigenetic nanti. Okay, this is just to introduce you what is called by epistasis. Okay, contohnya the recessive epistasis. In recessive epistasis, the F2 ratio is 9:3:4. For example, include the coat color determined in the Labrador retriever dog. So the gene B masks the black pigment, while this small b make brown. So another gene, which is the E, allow the expressions of the B gene, while the small other E and E does not. So the genotype and the corresponding phenotype ialah B dengan E is black. And B kecil dengan E besar is brown or chocolate. Then kalau B tidak apa ada, tapi E dengan E is yellow with nose and lip either dark. Okay, dark ialah B besar, satu lagi E kecil or pale, which is B/B, small e, small b, or small e. Yang kamu nampak ada satu dash tu tak? Like E/dash tak? Ada tak?
Yes.
You tahu apa itu dash tu maksud?
Maksud
Doctor.
maksud only the B gene is responsible for the black pigment, is it?
Okay. Boleh senang saja sebenarnya benda ni. Asalkan you get the two. Satu lagi kalau kamu tengok yang apa tu the color in the rodent. Okay? Pun sama. Okay? Dia sama saja sebenarnya di sini. Okay, the color. Okay, the rodent sama saja. Okay, kalau kamu kacaukan, dia akan hasil. Actually, dia punya basic konsep sama saja. Cuma kita gunakan animal berbeza dan kita gunakan genotype berbeza dengan hasilkan phenotype yang berbeza. Itu saja. Okay?
Okay.
Satu lagi ialah recessive epistasis kalau kita tengok human. Okay, the human example of recessive epistasis is albinism or albino. Okay, so albinism for genes control pigmentations in humans, for example, one of the 4 genes in recessive form affect the other 3 even though they are at different loci. Okay, resulting in the absence of the skin pigment, melanin in the hair and eyes. So the albinism causes the following trait, which is a white hair, very pale skin, and the pink pupils. Yeah. Kita tengok orang hitam pun ada albino juga. Ular pun ada albino. Kalau you pergi John Crocodile Farm, you can see a python yang warna putih tu. Then you can see turtle pun sama, and then the orangutan pun sama. Okay. This is the recessive epistasis dah. Okay. So the essential genes and lethal allele. Apa benda ni ialah some gene they require for life, which is what we call essential. And mutation in them will cause lethal. Okay. Or may result in death. So mereka ini sangat-sangat gene yang sangat penting. So the dominant lethal allele result in death of both homozygous or heterozygous, while the recessive lethal allele cause death only when homozygous. Okay, so dominant lethal are rare. Seeing death before reproductions would eliminate the genes from the population. It's very rare because baby ini tidak mungkin hidup because of the dominant lethal. Okay, so in humans, a dominant lethal gene causes Huntington disease, which is characterized by the progressing central nervous system degenerations, and the phenotype is not expressed until individual are in their 30s. So ada orang sampai 30 pun, sampai umur 30 baru dia tunjukkan simptom-simptom penyakit. Another example is a yellow body color gene in mouse. Okay, so this is to share with you the essential gene and also the lethal genes. Okay, okay so far?
Yes, doctor. Okay.
Dekat kucing ni sudah nak hujan. I need to speed up. Sangat-sangat gelap dah. I takut nanti saya punya line affected juga because we are forced to work from home sekarang. Tidak semua ditutup dekat Sarawak ni. So the essential gene and lethal genes for in humans, okay. Satu lagi ialah the Tay-Sachs. The Tay-Sachs disease, which due to an inactive genes in for the enzyme of the hexasaminidase. Okay, so the homozygous individual develop a neurological symptom before 1 year of age, and usually they will die within the first 3 to 4 years of life. Okay, satu lagi ialah hemophilia result from an X-linked recessive alleles, which is lethal if untreated. Hemophilia kamu tahu tak? Pernah dengar kan hemophilia ni? Yang berkaitan dengan darah tu. Okay? Aduh, dah hujan dah. Tak apa? Okay, I hope my line will not be affected. Okay, so gene expression and the environment. So the developments of an organism, a zygote is a series of general irreversible phenotype that change and resulting from interactions of the genome and the environment. So there are 4 major processes that are involved. First is a replication of the genetic material. Second is growth. Third is the differentiation of the cell into the type. And the last is the arrangements of the cell type into defined tissue or organ. So the internal and external environments interact with the genes by controlling their expressions and interaction with the products. Okay, contohnya the effect of the environment. The age of the onset ni yang sudah berlakunya something lah, the onset is an effect of the individual internal environment. So not all genes expressed at the same time. You must remember the gene expressed when they are needed only. They wouldn't be expressed if they are not needed. Okay, their expression is a temporal and spatial, and the program activations and activation of the gene influences many traits. Okay, for example, human example includes a pattern baldness appearing in the male age 20 to 30. Ada orang kenapa dia botak. Dan botaknya sangat berbeza. Ada orang botak di depan, ada orang botak di tengah-tengah. Yeah, and then the Duchenne's muscle dystrophy appearing in the children aged 2 to 5 years old. And temperature may also alter the activity of the enzyme so that they function normally at one temperature but are non-functional at another. So example is a full color of the Himalayan rabbits. So these white rabbits develop darker fur on the collar part of their bodies. Contohnya dekat ears, nose, and paw. Because kawasan itu dia lebih sejuk. Okay, and this is what we call the effect of the environment. All right. So the chemical can also have significant effect. Contohnya phenylketonuria (PKU), which is an autosomal recessive defect in the metabolism of the amino acids phenylalanine. If not treated by restricting phenylalanine in the diet, so severe mental retardations or other symptoms will result. Another one is a phenocopy, where modifications of the phenotype caused by environmental conditions such as chemical, mimicking a non-genes mutation. So the phenocopy are not inheritable, and the individual does not carry the allele, okay, being mimicked. So example of the phenocopy includes the rubella, okay, penyakit rubella pada dengar, which produces a cataract, deafness, and then heart defect in a fetus which mother is affected during the first 12 weeks of pregnancy, mimic the rare recessive allele. That's one. Another one is a drug thalidomide, which is mimic the effect of the genetic disorder of the phocomelia, suppressing the development of the long bonds of the limbs. Okay. Satu lagi, nature or nurture. Okay. So in human example, human height has both genetic and environmental component. Biasanya kalau kita tengok kenapa budak dekat bandar tu mereka lebih tinggi, lebih besar badannya, kerana mereka mempunyai nutrien yang sangat cukup semasa sejak kelahiran sampai mereka sampai dewasa. Tetapi kebanyakan dekat kampung-kampung di pedalaman tu, mereka kerana kekurangan resources dengan sumber, maka biasanya saiz mereka adalah kecil. Itu satu. Ya, satu lagi, the alcoholism is an example of behavior trait influenced by both gene and also environment juga. Okay, contohnya orang yang minum alkohol ni, okay, pun ada disebabkan gene. And some human intelligence also is an example of very complex relation. Okay, biasanya mereka yang pergi ke sekolah yang bagus-bagus, ya, kenapa IQ mereka lebih bagus? Tetapi kalau mereka yang berasal daripada kampung atau luar bandar ataupun di pedalaman, biasanya IQ mereka kurang sikit. Okay, ini tidak bermaksud bahawa IQ mereka sangat rendah, ya. Bukan semua orang bandar di pedalaman semua IQ rendah, tidak. Okay, mereka biasanya orang, kalau if you go to good university or with all the intelligent people, you akan menjadi orang yang intelligent juga. Kerana mereka bagi idea and you learn from them. Ya, you learn from them. Tetapi kalau di luar bandar, di pedalaman, ya, mereka tidak banyak ilmu dan tidak banyak orang boleh kita belajar, maka mereka punya resources very limited. Ya, this also one of the reason why they could not develop a good IQ. Okay, but it doesn't mean they are stupid. Mereka tidak ada environment macam tu saja. Macam dekat rumah kita lah. Kalau rumah orang banyak, dia punya rumah kemas dan lepas tu semua dia banyak hiasan. Tapi hiasan dia langsung tak ada buku. Hias rumah cantik-cantik, banyak bunga, banyak pokok, banyak macam-macam lah. Tapi you nak cari satu buku pun susah. Tapi banding dengan satu keluarga, mereka mempunyai reading room yang besar dan reading room mereka penuh dengan buku-buku. Cuba kamu rasa, anak daripada family background macam mana mempunyai result bagus? Ya, you sendiri tanya. Yes, siapa yang ada habit untuk membaca? Ya, habit untuk belajar. It's very important, the environment, the family punya environment also sangat penting. Alright. Penetrance and expressivity, kalau kita tengok di sini, okay, the penetrance describe how completely a presence of an allele correspond with the presence of a trait, and it depends on both the genotype and environments of the individual. So if all of these carrying the dominant mutants allele develop the mutant phenotype, then the allele is completely 100% is a penetrant. Okay, if some individual with the allele do not show the phenotype, the penetrance is incomplete. So if 80% of the individual with the new if the gene show the threat, then the gene has the 80% of penetrance. So human example is a brachydactyly, which involves the abnormalities of the finger, show 50 to 80% of the penetrance. Ataupun many cancer genes that thought to have low penetrance, making them harder to identify and characterize. Okay, ini pun one of the contoh lah kalau kita tengok tangan ni, ya. Dia tak normal, tapi dia bukan normal juga, ya. Dia somehow dia depend on the penetrance lah, berapa penetrance macam mana nak cakap dalam ketembusan orang kata, berapa kuat ketembusan gene tu. Okay, the human example of the osteogenesis imperfecta inherit autosomal dominant which of nearly 100% penetrant. Contohnya, the blueness of the sclera, which is the white of eyes, very fragile punya bones, and also deafness. So osteogenesis imperfecta shows the variable expressivity because of individual with the allele may have one or two or all three of its symptoms in any combinations, and bone fragility is also highly variable juga. So di sini dia tadi ialah penetrance, sekarang ialah expressivity. Genes and phenotypes in the individual. So two individuals with the same mutation may develop different phenotype due to the variable of the expressivity of that allele. Dia variasinya berbeza, walaupun dua individu ini mempunyai mutation yang sama, tapi boleh menghasilkan phenotype yang berbeza juga, kerana expressivity of this gene, of mutated gene adalah berbeza, kerana dia menghasilkan variasi yang perlainan. Okay, contohnya inilah. Kalau kita boleh tengok di sinilah the complete penetrance, consistent expressivity, okay, variable expressivity, incomplete penetrance, okay, and incomplete penetrance with variable expressivity. Okay, to end this. Okay, and ini pun the penetrance and expressivity, okay, yang boleh kita tengok. Okay, the allele of the autosome dominance that show 50 to 80% penetrance, variable expressivity ranging for the mouse skin discolorations to a neuroblastoma, tumor of the various sizes, tumor of the eyes, brain and spinal cord, and curvature of the spine. Ini antara penetrance yang berlainan. Ya. Right? So far okay?
Okay, doctor.
Okay, doctor.
Okay.
Shall we take 5? We take 5, then kita akan pergi ke kita akan pergi ke chi-square. Boleh tak?
Boleh.
Okay.
Boleh,
Take
doctor.
5, then we come back later.
Boleh.